The research vessel Nebula Seeker drifted silently through the outer edges of an unremarkable solar system. Chief researcher Zixna adjusted her atmospheric sensors for the third time, certain there must be an error in the readings. The small blue planet ahead of them simply couldn't support life, at least not by any conventional scientific understanding. Administrator Vedko, these readings are unprecedented. She chittered, her crystalline appendages reflecting the soft blue glow of the holographic displays. The atmospheric pressure alone should make complex life impossible, yet we're detecting artificial satellites. Vedko floated closer, his bioluminescent form pulsing with curiosity. The Ardani were known throughout the galaxy for their methodical research and unparalleled atmospheric sciences. After all, coming from a gas giant themselves, they understood better than most the delicate conditions required for life to evolve. "Show me the complete analysis," Vedko commanded, his voice a melodious hum that resonated through the ship's specialized atmosphere. The holographic display expanded, showing a planet that by all rights should be dead. Extreme temperature variations from pole to equator, crushing gravity by most galactic standards, constant geological activity, atmospheric composition that should be toxic to most known life forms. And yet, the satellites are clearly artificial, Zixna continued. And these energy signatures, they indicate a civilization of at least Category 3 technological advancement. They've achieved spaceflight despite evolving in these conditions. The research vessel's AI interrupted their discussion with an urgent alert. Incoming transmission from the planet's surface. They've detected us. Vedko and Zixna exchanged looks of surprise. Their cloaking technology should have been more than adequate to hide them from a Category 3 civilization. The fact that they'd been detected was yet another impossibility to add to their growing list. The transmission came through in clear, modulated waves. Unidentified vessel. This is Earth Defense Command. You've entered restricted space. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. The calm professionalism in the voice was startling. No fear, no excitement, just matter-of-fact communication, as if meeting alien vessels was routine. After following first contact protocols, the Nebula Seeker was invited to dock at an orbital station for formal introductions. What awaited them there would reshape their understanding of life itself. Commander Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command stood ready to greet them, completely unprotected in what the aliens considered a toxic atmosphere. She smiled warmly as the Ardani emerged from their specialized environmental chambers. "Welcome to Earth," she said simply, seemingly unaffected by the crushing gravity that forced the visitors to rely on anti-grav assists just to move. The following hours were filled with one revelation after another. The humans didn't just survive in these conditions, they thrived. They showed the visitors records of humans climbing mountains in air so thin it should have been fatal, diving into pressures that would crush most spacecraft, and casually handling temperature extremes that would destroy most known life forms. But how? Zixna finally asked, her scientific curiosity overwhelming protocol. "By every measure we have, your planet should be classified as a death world. No sentient species should have been able to evolve here, let alone build a civilization." Commander Chen's laugh echoed through the station. "We get that a lot, but you've got it backward. We didn't evolve despite Earth's conditions. We evolved because of them. Every challenge made us stronger, more adaptable. What you call a death world, we call home." Vedko's bioluminescence flickered with sudden understanding. They hadn't discovered a civilization surviving against impossible odds. They'd found something far more significant, a species forged by those very impossible conditions into something unprecedented in the galaxy. As the Nebula Seeker prepared to depart, carrying terabytes of data that would revolutionize galactic science, Vedko made a final note in the ship's log. "We came expecting to find a dead world. Instead, we found humanity. And nothing in the galaxy will ever be the same." The report they would send back to the Galactic Science Council would carry an unprecedented classification. Earth, Class X Death World. Species, human. Apex adaptable. Status: active and expanding. Little did they know, this discovery would soon prove crucial to the survival of all galactic civilization. Humanity's impossible resilience was about to become the galaxy's greatest asset. The Galactic Science Council's assessment team arrived on Earth 3 months after the Nebula Seeker's initial report, led by senior observer Kexlar, a veteran xenobiologist from the crystalline worlds of the Centauri sector. The team's mission was simple: determine if humans were as remarkable as initial reports suggested. They chose to establish their base in what humans call the Atacama Desert, one of Earth's most extreme environments. Their environmental suits, designed to withstand the harshest conditions known to galactic science, hummed constantly as they struggled to adapt to Earth's punishing gravity and atmosphere. "Impossible," muttered Dr. Ranavai, the team's physiologist, as she reviewed her first scans of their human guide. Their cellular structure should be collapsing under these conditions, yet they show no signs of stress. Their guide, Dr. Maya Patel, stood nearby in nothing but light clothing, completely at ease in conditions that would kill most sentient species in minutes. The desert's brutal sun beat down while temperature extremes swung wildly between day and night. To the assessment team, it was a nightmare. To Dr. Patel, it was just another Tuesday. "Would you like to see something really interesting?" Maya asked, noting their fascination with her biological readings. She led them to what she called a basic training facility, a place where humans deliberately subjected themselves to even more extreme conditions. The aliens watched in horror as humans willingly entered chambers that alternated between freezing cold and searing heat. They observed as people lifted weights that should have shattered their bones, ran distances that should have exhausted them beyond recovery, and deliberately deprived themselves of oxygen to enhance their body's efficiency. "But why?" Kexlar finally asked, his crystalline form vibrating with confusion. "Why push yourselves beyond natural limits?" Maya's response was enlightening. "Because we can. Because every limit we break makes us stronger. Our entire history is a story of overcoming what others consider impossible." The team's cultural specialist, Venzo, became particularly fascinated by human children. Unlike the carefully protected offspring of most species, human children were encouraged to explore, fall, fail, and try again. They watched in amazement as children climbed tall structures, played in conditions their sensors classified as hazardous, and recovered from injuries that would be fatal to other species young. "They're learning resilience," Maya explained. "Every scraped knee and bruised elbow teaches them that they can overcome pain, that they can heal, that they can adapt." The assessment team's reports back to the Council grew increasingly astonishing. Humans didn't just survive in Earth's conditions, they actively sought out greater challenges. They explored the deepest oceans, climbed the highest mountains, and were already planning colonies on even more hostile worlds. But it was their response to crisis that truly demonstrated humanity's unique capabilities. During the team's stay, a massive earthquake struck a nearby region. Instead of panicking, the humans organized immediately. The assessment team watched in awe as rescue workers dug through rubble with their bare hands, worked for days without rest, and ventured into conditions their sensors marked as absolutely lethal. "Your people," Kexlar observed to Maya as they watched the rescue efforts, "treat the impossible as merely inconvenient." The final report to the Galactic Science Council contained an unprecedented recommendation. Humanity must be considered not just as another spacefaring species, but as an entirely new category of life. Their adaptability, resilience, and drive to exceed their own limitations represent an evolutionary path we never imagined possible. Their abilities could revolutionize our understanding of survival itself. As the assessment team prepared to leave Earth, a priority message arrived from the Council. Reports were coming in from the galaxy's outer rim, reports of a threat unlike anything encountered before, a threat that would soon test whether humanity's extraordinary capabilities could protect not just themselves, but all galactic civilization. Kexlar looked back at Earth as their ship broke orbit, its blue-white surface deceptively peaceful. "We came to study them," he mused to his team, "but I suspect we'll soon be calling on them to save us all." The assessment team's departure coincided with humanity's first invitation to join the Galactic Defense Council, an invitation that would prove providential in the coming crisis. Earth's death-world nature had forged humanity into something unprecedented in the galaxy, a species that didn't just survive the impossible, but mastered it. The Hegemony Warfleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, their obsidian ships blotting out the stars. Supreme Commander Vexthal of the Hegemony stood on his flagship's bridge, his chitinous armor gleaming under the harsh lighting. The reports about humanity's capabilities had to be exaggerated. No species could be as adaptable as claimed. "These humans survive on a death world." "Impressive, but survival is not strength," Vexthal announced to his bridge crew. "We will show them true power. The Hegemony has conquered 1,000 worlds. This will be no different." The Hegemony had specifically chosen to attack during a solar storm, believing the increased radiation would cripple Earth's defenses. They expected panic, confusion, and ultimately submission. What they got instead was something entirely different. "Unidentified fleet, this is Admiral Helena Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Force." A calm voice transmitted across all frequencies. "You have entered restricted space during hazardous solar conditions. For your own safety, we recommend immediate withdrawal." Vexthal's mandibles clicked in amusement. These humans were concerned for his safety. His ships were designed to withstand the heart of a supernova. A mere solar storm was nothing. "Primitives," he broadcast back, "your concern is noted. Now witness true power." He gave the order, and his fleet's primary weapons charged, drawing energy from the solar storm itself. The resulting blast would have destroyed most planetary defense systems. But when the energy beams struck Earth's defensive sphere, something unexpected happened. The shields didn't just absorb the attack, they grew stronger. The humans had somehow engineered their defenses to use the solar storm's radiation as a power source. "Thank you for the energy donation." Admiral Rodriguez's voice came through again, still unnaturally calm. "We tried to warn you about the solar storm. Now please allow us to demonstrate why we're so comfortable operating in these conditions." What followed was unlike anything in the Hegemony's combat records. Human ships emerged from hiding positions throughout the system, their crews completely unaffected by radiation levels that should have been lethal. They moved with impossible precision through the solar storm, using the very conditions Vexthal had thought would weaken them as a weapon. "Impossible." Vexthal roared as his sensors showed human boarding teams cutting through his ship's hulls. "Our armor is impenetrable. The radiation levels alone should kill them." The response came from a human marine, her voice clear through the communication system as her team breached the flagship's bridge. "We evolved on a planet that tries to kill us daily. Your ships are cozy compared to Earth's deep ocean trenches." Captain Sarah Chen, leading the boarding team, stood before Vexthal in what appeared to be laughably light combat armor. "Your ship's internal conditions are similar to what we call a pleasant spring day back home," she explained, her team efficiently securing the bridge. "Though the gravity's a bit low for our taste." The battle lasted less than 6 hours. The mighty Hegemony fleet, terror of 1,000 star systems, was systematically disabled by a species they had gravely underestimated. Not a single human ship was lost, while the entire Hegemony fleet was captured intact. In the aftermath, as Vexthal signed the surrender documents, he finally understood. The humans hadn't just survived on their death world. They had mastered it, turned every lethal condition into an advantage. Their ships weren't just vessels. They were extensions of humanity's adaptability. "Your weapons are impressive," Admiral Rodriguez noted during the surrender ceremony, "but you made a fundamental mistake. You assumed that because we evolved on a harsh world, we would be primitive. The truth is, our world's challenges drove us to become something unique in the galaxy." The news of the hegemony's defeat spread rapidly through galactic civilization. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries had been humbled in a single battle by the newcomers from Earth. But more importantly, humanity had demonstrated a completely new approach to space warfare, one based not on overwhelming force, but on adapting to and exploiting seemingly impossible conditions. As the Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss these events, reports began arriving from the Outer Rim. A threat was emerging that would make the hegemony look insignificant, one that would require humanity's unique capabilities not just to fight, but to ensure the survival of all galactic civilization. In the council chambers, Admiral Rodriguez's words were replayed. "We don't just survive in harsh conditions. We thrive in them." And now, perhaps that's exactly what the galaxy needs. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was interrupted by a hologram that appeared in the center of the Grand Chamber. The image showed a planet transforming before their eyes, oceans boiling, atmosphere turning caustic, the very ground dissolving into toxic sludge. This was Nexus Prime, one of the most advanced worlds in the Outer Rim, and it was dying. "The entropy plague," whispered High Counselor Zena, her crystalline form dimming with horror. "It's no longer theoretical. It's here." The entropy plague was something out of nightmare, a self-evolving chemical process that transformed environments into increasingly hostile states. It didn't just kill life. It made worlds uninhabitable by any known standards. 3 more worlds had already fallen, and the plague was spreading faster than anyone had predicted. Dr. Emily Chung, Earth's representative to the Council, studied the data with intense focus. Where others saw hopelessness, she saw patterns. These conditions, she noted, they're not too different from Earth's great oxidation event. "We've seen this before, just slower." The council chamber erupted in murmurs. The humans were comparing this galaxy-ending threat to something from their own history. "Our planet tried to kill us long before we evolved," Dr. Chung continued. "Earth's atmosphere was poisonous to early life. But life adapted. It didn't just survive. It used the poison as fuel. We can do the same here." Within hours, Earth deployed what they called the Prometheus Initiative, specialist teams trained to work in the most extreme environments humanity had ever encountered. These weren't just scientists. They were pioneers adapted to conditions that would kill most species instantly. Commander James Rodriguez, no relation to the Admiral, led the first team onto an infected world. Their environmental suits, designed based on lessons learned from Earth's most hostile environments, allowed them to work in conditions that their alien colleagues considered certain death. "The plague isn't just destroying," James reported after his first survey. "It's transforming. Like Earth's extremophile bacteria, it's creating new environmental conditions we understand because we evolved in something similar." The human approach was revolutionary. Instead of trying to stop the plague, they worked to understand and redirect it. Teams deployed modified versions of Earth's extremophile organisms, life forms that had evolved to thrive in volcanic vents, acid lakes, and radioactive waste. Dr. Sarah Chen, daughter of the captain who had faced the hegemony, made the crucial breakthrough. "The plague operates like our own planetary evolution, just accelerated. We can't stop it, but we can guide it. We can turn death worlds into cradles of new life, just like Earth." The Council watched in amazement as human teams moved through environments their sensors couldn't even properly measure. They saw humans diving into seas of acid, walking through storms of metallic dust, and exploring caves filled with gases that would dissolve most known materials. "How?" asked a council member, watching footage of humans working in what should have been lethal conditions. "How can you endure this?" "We don't just endure," Sarah responded, her voice calm despite the caustic rain falling around her team. "We adapt. Every challenge Earth threw at us made us stronger. Now we're using those lessons to save your worlds." The Prometheus Initiative's success was beyond anything the Council had imagined. World by world, the plague was contained, transformed, and ultimately repurposed. Where it had created death, humans engineered new forms of life, hardy organisms based on Earth's most resilient species. But even as the first victories were celebrated, a new discovery sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The plague wasn't natural. It was engineered. And its source was approaching from intergalactic space. "We've detected something massive at the galaxy's edge," reported Admiral Chen, now commanding humanity's combined fleet. "Whatever created the plague, it's coming to finish what it started." In the council chamber, Dr. Chang stood to address the assembled representatives. "For millions of years, Earth tried to kill us. Instead, it prepared us. We turned our death world into our greatest teacher. Now, we'll use those lessons to save not just our world, but all worlds." As the galaxy prepared for its greatest challenge, humanity's unique perspective became its greatest asset. They didn't see impossible conditions. They saw opportunities. They didn't fear the unknown. They adapted to it. The final battle for galactic survival was approaching, and humanity's curse of evolving on a death world had become the galaxy's greatest blessing. The entity emerged from the void between galaxies, its vast form defying conventional physics. The combined fleets of the galaxy hung in space before it, a defensive line protecting billions of worlds. At the center of the formation, the Earth ship Prometheus held position, its crew calm despite facing what seemed to be certain doom. "We've confirmed our analysis," Dr. Sarah Chen reported from her research station on the Prometheus. "The entity isn't just responsible for the entropy plague. It is the plague, a living universe-spanning organism that transforms galaxies to match its own impossible biology." Admiral Helena Rodriguez stood on the Prometheus's bridge, studying the tactical displays. The entity dwarfed their entire fleet, its surface rippling with the same transformative energies they'd encountered on the infected worlds. But where others saw hopelessness, she saw opportunity. "Look at its composition," she pointed out to the gathered alien commanders. "The conditions it creates, the extreme pressure, the caustic atmosphere, the intense radiation. They're all things we've faced before. Earth threw worse at us during our evolution." The entity made its first move, releasing a wave of energy that would transform everything in its path into an environment suited to its own biology. The alien ships retreated, their crews unable to survive such conditions. But the Earth ships held their ground. "All ships, activate the adaptation protocols," Rodriguez commanded. The human fleet's shields shifted, incorporating the same principles that had allowed life on Earth to survive multiple extinction events. Instead of blocking the entity's energy, they absorbed it, adapted to it, used it. "Impossible," exclaimed High Counselor Zena, watching from the safety of the Council's evacuation shelter. "Their ships should be dissolving." Dr. Emily Chang's voice came through the communication system. "Nothing is impossible. That's humanity's greatest lesson. We evolved on a world that should have killed us. Instead, we learned to turn hostile conditions into advantages." The human fleet's response was unprecedented. Ships dove into conditions that their alien allies' sensors couldn't even measure. The crews, protected by suits based on Earth's extremophile organisms, worked in environments that should have destroyed any conventional matter. Commander James Rodriguez led the first direct assault, his strike team boarding the entity itself. "The conditions here," he reported back, his voice steady despite the impossible environment around him. "They're similar to Earth's early atmosphere, mixed with some deep-sea vent characteristics. We can work with this." The entity, for the first time in its eons-long existence, encountered something it couldn't simply transform. Humanity had already adapted to everything it could throw at them. Every attempt to create lethal conditions was met with humans who had evolved to thrive in worse. Dr. Sarah Chen made the final breakthrough. "It's not just about surviving these conditions," she announced to the fleet. "It's about teaching the entity what we learned on Earth, that life doesn't have to transform everything to survive. It can adapt itself instead." The Prometheus initiated the final phase of their plan. Using modified versions of Earth's most resilient organisms, combined with technology based on human adaptability, they began to change the entity itself, not destroying it, but teaching it what humanity had learned over millions of years of evolution. "Your way isn't the only way to survive," Admiral Rodriguez transmitted to the entity as their plan took effect. "Earth taught us that life finds a way not by destroying what's different, but by adapting to overcome challenges. Let us show you another path." The battle ended not with destruction, but with transformation. The entity, confronted with a species that could not only survive but thrive in its presence, experienced something new: adaptation. Its consciousness, touched by human persistence, began to change. As the entity withdrew from the galaxy, its nature fundamentally altered by the encounter, the Council gathered to assess what had happened. Humanity hadn't just saved the galaxy, they had demonstrated a completely new way of facing cosmic challenges. "We used to think Earth was a death world," High Counselor Zena admitted in the victory celebration. "Now we understand. It was a crucible, creating something the galaxy desperately needed. A species that could face the impossible and adapt." Admiral Rodriguez stood at the ceremony, her crew beside her, representing not just humanity, but a new hope for the galaxy. "Earth tried to kill us countless times," she said to the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds. "Instead, it prepared us for this moment. We are not just survivors of a death world, we are its graduates, ready to help the galaxy face whatever comes next."